If you find this show informative or funny, you should tell your friends, your family. You got fingers. You got fingers. You got fingers. You got fingers. Come on.
5 different shows.
5 different shows.
5 days a week.
5 days a week. 5 different topics. 5 different amazing. You got fingers. You got fingers. You got fingers. You got fingers. Fingered by Randy and Jason.
So today, me and Randy are going to be talking about vampires.
Aaliyah and Queen of the Damned for 30 minutes.
No. Specifically, Anne Rice's vampires. It turns out that since about November or so, she's been talking a lot about a TV series. We kind of referenced it in another show a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And so each day she kind of gives an update about what's going on. But she's also filmed a couple of videos where her and her assistant, I think, go over exactly like what she wants to do. But it is like the most open but also inclusive sort of announcement discussion I've ever seen someone do for that wants to put out a big series. Like, she's talking like 7 years of these shows.
Really quickly, just for whoever's listening, if they aren't familiar with Anne Rice and why this is kind of important to, I guess, at least important to us as far as like vampire films, that culture, like what makes it different.
Well, like Interview with the Vampire, I think is sort of a book that came out a couple years before I was born. But it really turns, it's like the first postmodern vampire story in a way, you know, where this kid is interviewing a vampire, obviously. And then about 9 years later, a book comes out that is the Vampire Lestat, or Lestat. And it's the second book, but it's really the first in the timeline, or in the main timeline of the series. And it is better than the first book, in my opinion. And but both are very excellent. And the first 6 or 7 books are just really, really solid. And we're sort of in this age where Game of Thrones and Harry Potter and then all the costume drama stuff that's going on, like the Borgias and stuff like that, is kind of having this strange like renaissance of the costume drama. It's huge right now, and fantasy as well. And I like Harry Potter, it's fun, but I like, and then Game of Thrones is cool, but I'm not a big fan of those books. I mean, I like to watch the show for what it is, but the Anne Rice vampire books are really good. And now I will say, when I sit down and I read the Vampire Lestat, I'm like, I love it. The tone, he's written as if he's this French, vampire from the 1700s, but he's reinvented himself so many times. So he has like this air of like Sam Spade and the detective and the noir kind of thing about him, which was probably Anne Rice sort of realizing that she couldn't write historically accurate in that voice and tell this story like effectively. But anyways, it just really switches up the whole like genre, and I think it's going to be good for something like HBO to like pick up. Yeah, it would be, to me, it's way better than, what was that, True Blood?
True Blood, yeah.
Yeah, True Blood. I mean, that was kind of hacky to me.
It started off with promise. I really liked the first season of that show, and then
it had like a subtext, like we're going to talk about gay marriage or something, or like and race in America.
It was kind of. It was using vampires as a way to talk about like social issues.
But by the end of it was just softcore masturbation material for like losers who won't go to YouPorn.
Once they had were-panthers, I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm into this anymore.
Yeah, no, once you have a story about true love, and then she's like, or the main character is into every single person. Yeah. But I mean, like that was like a fan fiction writer's version of this, and it was just awful. I mean, even the setting is...
you haven't seen 50 Shades of Grey.
New Orleans, is where they both take place. But anyways, but Anne Rice, to go back to her, on her videos and stuff like that, they're not really... The videos aren't well done. It's like a shaky cam and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's awesome how open she is, especially because we spend so much time in the like Lucasfilm world where things are needlessly secretive all of the time.
Right. You have to dig for like the crumbs.
Yeah. Like as I'm doing this, I'm like, I should start an Anne Rice fan site because there is so much content.
Like, but she's kind of like just giving
no,
it
she's
out.
actually, there's no reason. She actually discusses
she's doing
it.
her job.
But anyway, so she opens up. Really quickly, the videos started. There was 2 videos on January 4th. One was on her main Facebook page, and one was on the Vampire Chronicles like TV show page. And she did them back to back. But since then, she's updated things every day. There's been like an update almost every day from her. And so we just kind of want to go over some of the things that she asked.
And where can people find these if they want to check them out?
Just look up Anne Rice on Facebook,
okay.
And then like you'll find the official page, and then go there, and you shouldn't have a hard time.
All right, let's see what we got here.
But no, she asked if the series should be called Lestat, the Vampire Chronicles, or should it be called the Vampire Lestat, the Vampire Chronicles. You know what I mean? So she was asking, should she put Lestat up front and then call it the Vampire Chronicles, or
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But I thought that was interesting because that's clearly like means that's her main working title and what she likes the best. And then
right, yeah.
I'm going to jump ahead for 1 second and say she's writing the show with her son. Her son's a pretty good author in his own right, and her husband was a poet. So the guy has had writers, in his life. So he's pretty solid, but she's doing the outlines for the series. And then her son is going to write the actual scripts. And it sounded like, we'll get to it later, but they have already written a few of them even. I think they're going to do like 6 episodes or something. And then when they finally get a deal, they're going to go from there. But then she goes on about actors. And she says that she's afraid to name actors, and she doesn't say why, but I think it's because if she says she really wants so-and-so, then they have major leverage in the deal process.
Yeah, that's true.
She says that she's got an incredible response from the Hollywood community and actors and agents. She's learning of new actors all the time in the golden age of costume drama television. Actors have to look the same age for, 7 or 8 years because vampires don't age. So she's wanting people that look a certain way, or people that are look like they're 17, but they're already 29, And
Luke Perry.
She thinks the talent pool is so high in this golden age, she doesn't see any problems at all keeping handsome. She tells her fans to keep the handsome guys coming. So if you go to her page, you just see fans all day going, this person would be perfect for this character and this character. And she says that she's basically making a spreadsheet of all of the fan recommendations based off of that, which once again, I've never seen an author or somebody putting on a television show letting their audience get that involved.
Yeah,
that level,
totally.
Which is very cool. She's asked what rating, and someone's like Game of Thrones, and she's all, we're not going to network. This is far too transgressive. She says Amazon, HBO, Star, Showtime, or Netflix. And then she said that she wants that fidelity.
Yeah.
She doesn't think the show will be as violent as Game of Thrones, but she definitely demands that production value.
Yeah.
And she wants integrity to the commitment to the books that the readers want to see happen on screen and the situations they want to see those characters in. Past incarnations of books, including her own and others, have not been true to the books all the time, and she demands that standard as well. So you won't see a vampire from those in a situation that you would never find them in one of her novels.
Right.
She says that she's seen her books watered down and compromised galore with the scripts that she's been sent. And I think she also kind of takes a subtle dig at Queen of the Damned, that film, but doesn't really say it.
Right.
But,
yeah. If you're unaware, Queen of the Damned was pretty atrocious. Especially not in only contrast to the books, but the film that came out, Interview with a Vampire, prior to that. Yeah,
it was one of those. Anne Rice had been making a huge amount of money every year off of every single book that she had,
right? Because
she had licensed the deal out where she was getting $20,000 to $50,000 every year, whether they made it or not. And there came a point, I think it was Warner Brothers, if I remember right, but I could be wrong. But Warner Brothers had been doing it for so long that they were like, you know what, we're going to make Queen of the Damned because we're going to make a movie because we paid all.
Right.
And then they just made a piece of trash.
I mean, it was horrible film.
So awful. I think his name was Stuart Townsend, who played Lestat in that film.
Mm.
And he was, I honestly didn't hate him. as the character, but in a better Lestat film, he could have been okay.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because everything else was just so bad.
It was like straight to DVD.
And it was. I went and saw it in the theater knowing it was going to be a huge disappointment, but it was still such a disappointment. It was one of the few times in my life I've actually asked for my money back because I was just so fucking like mad because that book, Queen of the Damned, is thematically should be Empire Strikes Back good.
Yeah.
And Anne Rice was on a plane. And I think this is how the story goes. She was on a plane like to Europe, and they showed both Blade Runner and Empire Strikes Back, and that's when Queen of the Damned like formed for her.
Right.
It was she watched both of those movies, and she actually mentions Blade Runner in I think in that book because there's that moment where the cyborg kills his maker.
Right.
And she's like, that's how the vampires should be. Like that's how they would see this. They would want to murder their makers in the end. So that whole idea of that like self-hatred that comes out of being this immortal who can't die but also doesn't know where they fit in
and wanting to kill the person who's responsible for it.
Yeah,
it all was like born of that like Blade Runner.
Yeah, and the person who gave it to him knows exactly what it means to be that, so it's even more like fucked up. But but the original film was fucking fantastic. The interview with the vampire. Yeah, and in some ways it shouldn't have been. Mm-hmm. Like when they cast Tom Cruise to be Lestat, that should have been a nightmare. But it just turns out that he had the right amount of arrogance to like really like play and viciousness to like land a certain spirit of that character. And that movie isn't perfect for Lestat or Interview with the Vampire fans, but the ways that it's not perfect, it has more to do with like the logistics of like Anne Rice's daughter died of cancer. Mm-hmm. So she wrote Claudia, who's this vampire who can't die. Mm-hmm. But then they have to go and put like a Kirsten Dunst. How she was about 9,
maybe even younger than that.
Yeah, no, I think she was older. I mean,
really?
not. She's definitely not 5. Like Claudia's supposed to be 5, and she's probably about 9 or 10.
Right,
like, not quite at puberty, but close. That's coming, you know. But anyways, that's because to get that performance, they were going to need someone who could handle
who could understand
and who could handle
complex
the workload.
Emotion. Yeah.
So, anyways, so that's never been done right on screen. Well, it was good, and the stuff that the visual effect of the hair growing and the visual effect of when the vampires die from the sun and the ash,
right? Yeah,
like how they like kind of like it's actually a wire that's pulling really fast, and when it's sped up, it looks like it's just the ash falling down.
Oh, nice!
It was a really good effect.
Yeah,
but
really cool.
And Neil Jordan directed that, who does Borgias. Mm-hmm. And so I still wouldn't be surprised if he's somewhat on the table, or if they talked to him, but maybe he's already been there and done that and is not interested. But he did do Borgias for Stars, I think. Mm-hmm. So it's completely like probably somebody who's come up. But anyways, so she says that where would they begin? And she says in the 18th century, Lestat, young man, the Vampire Lestat is the first part of the story as far as she's concerned. It's the second book in the original like main series. She wants to begin it with him wanting to get out of the ignorance and filth of the part of France that he's in, and wanting to get to Paris, where Magnus then sweeps him up and turns him into a vampire. If you consider spoilers to be a big thing for you, these books are super old, and I don't care. You could have read it by now, you know. But yeah, the gist of it is him and his best friend, who, depending, I think, on your world point of view, it's either him and his best friend or him and his just pure lover.
Yeah, right.
Which is probably the lover side is the real accurate interpretation.
Yeah, probably.
They run away to Paris, and he is the son of the Marquis. And but he's not like he's like a rich aristocrat. He's like famine and things are not good in the part of the aristocracy he's a part of. It's not so swell. And he's this hunter who goes out and hunts for, you know, I don't know what you call it, his village or his part of land, and he's the one who is responsible for feeding them when they're starving, and it's really hard. And he ends up going out there, and about 5 or 6 wolves attack him, and it's this really good part of the book where he fights them
I
over
remember
several.
Him trying to run to get back to
and he has like 2 dogs that are like his only friends, and they are hurt, and I think they might even die in that fight. But he has this desire to live and like this fighter spirit. that makes this vampire who sees him when he finally gets to Paris. This vampire sees him in the theater and is able to pull out knowledge from his mind, if I remember correctly. And he knows, he calls him the Wolf Killer. And then Lestat starts to hear these whispers of Wolf Killer. And this guy, Magnus, kind of knows that this guy might be a vampire who could stand the test of time, because he really doesn't want to die.
Right.
He really has a fighter side to him and a fierceness that he hasn't seen. So that's why he decides to make him into one. And then things get complicated later on, because what ends up happening is he ends up finding out that he ends up searching for this guy named Marius. Marius knows their true origin. But the problem is that if you kill the source of the true origin of the vampires, they will all die.
Right.
So later on, when he gets to the interview with the vampire story, and Claudia and Louis want to know exactly where they come from and why, he won't tell them. He protects them. Anne Rice uses the analogy of how parents often lie to their children because it's a better story that will help them endure.
Right. Yeah.
He tells them that, but it's actually what breaks them apart. Anyways. Yeah, I definitely suggest reading the books. I do not suggest the audiobooks. I love the books. Like I was saying, I can read them.
I didn't even think about there's probably audiobooks for that.
The voice in my head when I read them, it's great. And it's arrogant. Sometimes it's cheesy. Sometimes it's almost grating. But the voice when I read her writing is completely different than when I listen to the audiobooks. Something about the audiobook delivery, it annoys me, and I can't do it.
Yeah.
And like for me, in terms of just fiction books these books are not dumb at all. They're well researched for the most part, but they, they're vampires, at the same time. So I'm not going to act like this is Shakespeare or something,
Yeah.
But they're vampires. But this is my favorite book series. This is probably my Star Wars of fiction for me, of novels. Now, so she wants it to start in France. She says the Chronicles evolved over 40 years, though, and there was a series of books that she did that were there was the Mayfair Witches, and that's not included in this.
Okay, and
there was overlap. There's an organization called the Telemasca that investigate paranormal activities, and so there's some characters who were in both books, but both series and stuff like that. She says that the Mayfair Witches have a different deal already.
Right.
So they can't even be included. Some characters, I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know if they'll just be alternate characters, or if she already has the rights to include the ones that are in the Vampire Chronicles. If there was some stuff worked out for that already or not. But she says basically there was 40 years of development on this. So she's going back and reading stuff that she did because she needs to really freshen up and know who's who, and
thin it down, find out what actually works in the end.
Yeah, and then there's a Vampire Lestat book came out last year or so, and then there's another one that is fresh out too.
Right.
And so I won't talk about any spoilers from those because I think it is fair to let people read those two books. But there are characters in those books that predate anything in the story so far.
Right.
And she says that basically she has ways that she's going to put those characters into the series.
Okay.
Yeah, and she said something, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it made me think that what she's going to do is when Magnus is making Lestat, she wants that, and he starts to become a vampire, she really wants that to be in an episode where you see how a vampire sees. So she's basically saying that she wants to do an episode of surrealism.
Yeah.
Because when they see, in the original Jordan film, you get this moment where you see a statue's eye move, and he talks about how his vision is opening up, and it tells you a lot more than it gets to show you.
Yeah.
She sounds like she's really
she wants to actually
the reason why she wants
that.
Yeah. And she says that we're not going to do that for the whole series. It'll be for the episode. Then we'll go back to human vision for the audience.
Right. Yeah.
But she wants to do that. Somebody asked, "Are you going to break the fourth wall?" Mm-hmm. Because Lestat in the books is the first person,
right? And
he talks to you.
There's a lot of inner monologue and kind of stuff, yeah.
And she says that when you do that, it gives the character a certain power, and she wants this to be more over Lestat's shoulder than Lestat talking to us.
Yeah.
So it sounds like right now, unless something changes, it's going to be in the Game of Thrones style where you don't hear the narration and stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, that narration, though, would probably save them a lot of money for a lot of different ways. But
I think it was really well done for Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah, and an Interview with the Vampire is a stranger tense because it's Louis talking to the interviewer.
Right.
So
and they're able to get away with that.
And then it has and then she also kind of sets the stage too.
Right.
So yeah, that book is very, very, very strange on that front. I remember as a teenager when I first read it, it was like, wow, what? Oh, this is confusing kind of, but I loved it. So she goes on to say that the other books and so the timeline will be touched. The timeline is going to start there, but characters will be shown in different ways. So I think basically when they are drinking blood, I think there's going to be ways for her to show hints and kind of foreshadow the past that Lestat is going to learn about, and characters who are part of, and the demon who starts the vampire thing and all that. There's going to be ways of including them. So when we get to the 7th season of the show and they become very prominent, they've been there all along still. It doesn't just feel like all of a sudden this character comes out of left field. Yeah. And which I like. And then at another point, she says that there will be new characters. But she says these new characters are not going to change how the stories move from the books. They're just going to be the new characters are going to be ways of making coherent scripts because they were written as novels, not as scripts. Right. But she does say that her new characters who she wants to create for the television series will likely turn up in her future books, though. Okay. So this is like, in a way, she's not putting one medium over the other. These things are going to have a strange marriage and a strange history that makes everything kind of evolve, Unlike, say, The Walking Dead, where you have, these two, totally different universes that have added characters from one. Yes. But not necessarily added them to the other. Right. Yeah. Right. So she says she has an irrepressible desire to create. So new characters will pop up, but it won't violate the original content. She goes on to say, you can't use the books to gauge the linear story. So I get that. I'm not sure if I skipped over it already, but she says basically that season 1 is going to be the Vampire Lestat. Nice. Season 2 will likely be Vampire Lestat. But this depends on how many episodes per season. Right. So if we're talking 10 to 12, she says it's going to be 2. By the 3rd season, it will become Interview with the Vampire. Oh, wow. But it will be from Lestat's point of view and not Louis'. Right. Which will be the first time that we ever get that story completely from his perspective. That's interesting. And on the original, they also released a graphic novel 2 years ago of Claudia, an Interview with the Vampire from Claudia's perspective, which I found to be really good. Oh, wow. It wasn't complete, I wouldn't call it a classic or anything, but if you're an Anne Rice fan, it's definitely worth picking up. Right. It wasn't written by her, but it was approved. She consulted on it with the comic book people. Very nice. Sorry, I don't remember who did it now. So anyways, so she at one point she picks up her copy of the Vampire Lestat hardback, and there's just hundreds of stickies, and she opens it up, and you can see like scribbling in her notes. She's writing on pages and stuff, and she just shows it to you. Right. Yeah. Which once again, I was just really surprised at how transparent and inclusive she is. Yeah, totally. Christopher Rice is going to write the script. She's doing the outlines. She lists each scene she wants to see. So she's the one who's saying these scenes must be in the scripts, and her son is going with it. And then she also at one point says that she's never been good at working with a collaborator because she doesn't trust them. And basically, though, she trusts her son. So when you get down to it, this is probably the only opportunity that we're ever going to have. Thankfully, her son's a good writer and a writer in general. Talamasca is going to be a vital part of the story. That's that organization that investigates the supernatural and vampires and witches and stuff. And she says creating the name Lestat was a blunder. She was trying to write a different version of Lestat, and it was a typo kind of situation. People also asked her husband's name was Stan Rice, and they thought Lestat might be Stan, like Lestan, kind of thing. She says no, but she says if she did do it, it was subconscious, right? Yeah, anyways, with her, she has a relationship with her son as a writer, and they also have a new book coming out or some project coming out together too. But she just teases it. Anyway, she wants to see the transformation stage by stage, that long night in Magnus's tower, and realizes how strong Lestat is becoming. She wants where he starts to discover his powers. And so she's and then she says that she also wants to have that lapse back into the mortal vision, but she wants to show when his mother, Gabrielle, is on the edge of death and becomes this beautiful woman. And she talks about this producer who she worked with when they were going to do the movies before, who had this idea that they would cast a really young, beautiful actress, and then they would age her up and make her look sickly and old. And then so when she transforms into the vampire, she becomes this beautiful, like, young woman.
Yeah.
So they're going to be doing that, it sounds like. It sounds like that is her plan. Louis' story will start in season 3 or maybe at the end of 2. But from Lestat's point of view, which we said, he can't. She says he can't tell them all and knows because the vampire. Oh, because of the promise he made Magnus. So So that we already kind of talked about. She wants to go into production by the end of the year, so that it could be released in 2018. They will have scripts very soon. Enormous amounts of interest by Hollywood from good people. She says.
All right.
She doesn't name anyone for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
If you read Blackwood Farm, it might be included, but. Mona and the main character of Blackwood might not be in the series. She hasn't just totally decided, and she did these books that were like the new stories of the vampires, and they're not really part of the main story. They're kind of a hybrid of the witches and the Vampire Chronicles. And she was like writing like 2 books a year at that time,
right? And
they're really good, but they're not Anne Rice good, in my opinion.
Okay,
you know what I mean? Where she had several years to write the books and just make them swell. She says she loved Kate Blanchett to be Gabrielle, but that's based off of a question someone asked her, so I don't think they're actually considering that. And who knows if Kate Blanchett would do it or not. But she also says that she's 75 and she wants to be a vampire. but I mean she's 75. I mean that's
crazy.
That's I hate to say it, but yeah, that's not a lot of life left. So I am glad that she's spearheading this project. Because in 10 years, it's not going to be possible.
Right, yeah.
And then she says that, she has that list of actors we already talked about. Oh, she talks about this guy. She won't say his name. But she says that, like, he's, she wants him to be Armand, and it's her favorite, I think. And, Armand's like 16 or so when he's first introduced, and then he's like 17 when he becomes a vampire.
Right, yeah.
In the story. So she says that she's insisting on that he not be like
not be like Antonio Banderas.
She doesn't knock him at all, but she says like basically like
I always got the impression that she liked his portrayal, but it wasn't what she intended.
Yeah, and but we found this guy, and she says like he played King. Was it King Richard? He played some role. Amanda Whitten did the research, and she like narrowed it down. It's probably this guy named Anurin Bernard, and I'll show you. Everyone can't see it, but it's a pretty good look for
That's very,
looks like Titanic Sinclair.
A little bit, yeah.
But anyways, so she goes on to say, wait, I lost my page. So Claudia is going to be in one episodic block of the show. So it sounds like what they really plan on doing is actually getting a 5-year-old to be Claudia,
right,
and filming it all at once and getting it out of the way and whatever they might need for the future at that moment. And then Claudia will be perfect. So, because, if you cast a 5-year-old, then you try to bring her back next year to be a ghost in one scene. Yeah, she's going to look like she's, 12.
She got facial hair and all that. Like, this ain't working for Claudia anymore.
She Claudia. She goes on to say that she takes this seriously and the actress seriously. And then that was back. Most of that was back in January, but there's been daily updates. And on Friday, she says, "Let me tell you that with each passing day, we come a little nearer to our dream of a TV series. I am highly optimistic. Yes, this is vague, but it's honest, perfectly honest. We are getting there." And then, so she also asked, would you go to the movies to see the premiere in the theater? So it sounds like, and then she goes on to say, like, what if Game of Thrones had an 1.5 hour long movie that kicked off every season, and you could go to the theater and see it there. Right. And then, so what I think is going on there, this is just my guess, is that if they want a higher production value than some people are willing to go with, and they're trying to capitalize on season premieres in the theaters to get some of that cash
to actually get the interest and say, like, hey, if you put the money into this, and it'll be worth it at box offices. And and I mean,
it's
an interesting approach.
No, definitely. I mean, for me, I would love for that. I would love to go and see those movies or the opening season premiere, like little films, like theatrically. It would mean that I don't know how it affects the show if they do that, because it means that it has to be a very satisfying beginning every single time.
Yeah. You can't go in there and have like all this expositional stuff being laid down that are never really kind of fulfilled. There would have to be a story that kind of found its end within that hour and a half, and that doesn't usually happen with a lot of And they usually ask more questions than they answer.
And with the Lestat story, though, what is interesting about it is that you can tell that story, I think, with him in France in his father's castle or whatever, and that whole situation, and get up to the wolves and tell like that part with the brutal battle with the wolves, and then end it with him and Nicholas running away.
Yeah.
And then you would have a good story.
You'd have a good story, but it's not necessarily the story you go in there wanting to see.
Yeah. No, I mean, like as a fan of this, I would be happy with it.
Yes.
But critics would not. Well, they'll be like, I went to see Vampire Lestat, and there was no vampire.
Right.
So they would have to find a way of changing up, not telling it straightforward. You would have to have like Lestat present day and have him do some vampire stuff and then cut back to him or something like that to really make that land, I would think. So I'm curious as to if this happens, and I'm curious to see how they execute it. But I think that overall, a big chunk of that story is stronger than anything we've had on cable. So with that in mind, I'm super excited. That's why I'm going to follow this production, and I hope it happens. It's supposed to have happened before, and there's supposed to have been lots of films that never happened. So a part of me is like, I've been kicked in the gut on this stuff before.
Yeah.
But
it seems like the best time for it to happen now that TV is at that point where it can do this justice.
Yeah.
Hopefully this is the time.
And films are getting its ass kicked by TV right now. So I'm happy.
All right, then. Vampire Lestat. Hopefully we'll be talking about it more in the future. Have a story you want us to discuss on the show? Send in your emails to fingeredpodcast@gmail.com. And if it's good, we might consider it. Fingered Podcast can be found on iTunes, SoundCloud, or the Google Play Store. So check it out. It comes out 5 days a week, and we always have a new topic, so make sure you visit regularly.